Hi guys, and this is a mini lecture that I want to give you more instructions about how R works and to help you a little bit with the assignment because I have seen that many of you have struggled a lot with the functions, the products of all your work to save them, to export them. It has been a little bit difficult. So I want to give you more instructions and hopefully this can be helpful for you if you haven't submitted the assignment, or it's going to be helpful for next uh, for the future in the course. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 5 topics. First, how R works in general. What is the relationship between R and your computer? Second, a little bit more about this concept of object. Third, what is the assignment operator? 4, what is the pipe? That is a function created by Tidyverse or an operator created by Tidyverse. And finally, a little bit about the task. Okay, so I'm gonna open here. I'm gonna set my working directory. Actually, I already did it, so I'm gonna get my working. No, I'm gonna change my working directory. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna use the Tidyverse. Okay. So to some extent, R and your computer behaves similar to the Matrix and the real world in the film Matrix. In the sense that whatever happens in Matrix does not really happen in the real world, right? So whatever happens in R is not gonna change anything in your computer. It's gonna be temporal. It's gonna be virtual to some extent, unless you ask R to export it to your computer. Okay. So you have your R script here, your console, and your environment, and this tab, this part of your computer, the files, plots, packages, etc., is the window that connects, or the bridge that connects R with your computer, that connects the matrix with the real world of your computer. Okay? For instance, if I want to bring something from the real world of your computer, I use this function. I'm gonna create a data using this function called read CSV. I'm gonna use the dataset election CSV. Selection. Okay, so I brought something from your computer, right? This is if, like, I use read that CSV to bring from the computer to R, right? Now, if I want to, whatever I do to this subject, whatever, if I manipulate, if I create new variables, if I change variables, if I delete variables, if I delete observations, whatever, it's going to happen only in R. It's not going to happen in your computer, okay? So you need to tell R to use a function to export this subject data that exists in R but not in your computer, that exported to your computer, okay? The function that I gave you was write CSV, for instance, but there are many other options. And you need to use the object, the name of the object here, and later the name that you want to assign to the new data set that you're gonna create in your computer. Okay. So you're gonna go and what you're gonna do right now is to export. So you're gonna export from R to your computer. Okay. So let's see, for instance, if that data set exists in your computer. So you go to your folder and you have delete 2. So that's what you exported from R to your computer. That's the first thing that I want to highlight, and I'm gonna emphasize on this, and it's gonna make more sense to you. Okay. The second thing that is important to mention is the concept of object. So an object is a box, as I said, a box to which you assign and you put many different things. For instance, I can put in this box called X, I can put the number 6. I'm gonna say R assign to X this value 6, okay? And this is the assignment operator, which plays a critical role in the analysis, no, in the analysis, no, in coding, okay, in R. I said that. In order to know that R actually did it in the matrix or in the R world, you need to see your objects here. They need to be in your environment, okay? You can, for instance, sum 4 plus 8, and it's gonna give you 12, right, in the console, but it's not gonna be in your environment, right? It's important that you understand that part. If you, for instance, want to create a new variable called, I don't know, y, a new object y that takes the value of Mary, I don't know, which is a categorical variable, this is important. You need to use quotation marks, okay? So you have now two objects, one x and the other one is y. One has a numerical value, the other has a categorical value, okay? You can, if you, for instance, I don't know, if you create a new variable called c and you assign to this value the number 4 and you sum x times c, you're gonna have 10 here, but you're not gonna have any change, right? You're gonna have any change unless you say to the system R create a new object called c with the values of x and c, right? So this new object is going to have the sum of x and c. If you, in this box, for instance, you can add the value of, I don't know, 3 to the already existing c, the object c. Okay? But if you do that, for instance, if I do this here, it's going to tell me a number, right? It's going to be 13 because c is already, the value of c is 10. But if I use the assignment operator, so I'm now talking much more about the assignment operator, the changes that I do to the object c will be permanently applied to the object c, okay? So let's see here. So right now, c doesn't value 10 anymore. Now it's going to value 13, okay? This is important because it's something that we're going to keep doing all the time. So again, the idea is that an object is something that really exists in the R environment, but not necessarily exists in the real world of your computer, or it exists in your computer unless you tell R to export that object in certain way. Could be a table, a plot, or a data set, or something else, right? An object is a box in which you put different things and that you can assign changes, you can manipulate through different operators. The most important one that we need to learn is this assignment operator, right? Okay, so those two things are covered. Now, and also the third one, what is the assignment operator? Perfect. Now, these guys of the Tidyverse created a new operator called the pipe operator. This is the pipe operator, okay? And it works similar to the assignment operator in the sense that I said, for instance, I'm going to use my data set. I'm going to say, do to the data set, to the object data, the following things. For instance, select two variables. For instance, I don't know, location county and location state, right? I can do that. So notice that the pipe operator asks R to do to this data set to select only two variables, and it does it. Look at here. You can see that you have a new data set here in the console with only two variables and the same number of observations, right? But you don't see those changes here. You still have 4,200 observations and 51 variables. Why? Because the assignment, the pipe is used to do several, like a task, or ask R to do several operations or several changes to an object, but those changes are temporal. They haven't been applied to the object or to a new object, okay? And that happens because sometimes you have to do many manipulations of a dataset, and you don't want to create several objects. You just want to have an object, right? The problem with this is that all those changes are temporal and they haven't been applied. So they don't even exist in the R environment, okay? In order to ask R to permanently apply those changes, you create, or either you create a new object such as data2, or you use the same object, but you tell R to apply permanently those changes, okay? You use the assignment operator. And now you know, or you see that data2 has the same number of observations, but only two variables. Did you notice that change? So data is different to data2, and when you use the assignment operator, these changes that you saw in the console actually are applied to a new object. Okay. But notice that you can use the same object and apply changes to that same object. Imagine that I don't want to select, I want to filter, right? Filter, for instance, this county, I want to use the county Abbott. If I do something like this, I apply the changes directly to the same object. It's similar to what I did here. Do you remember this? Okay. So that's important to keep in mind. For that reason, in order to have the track of the changes, it's better to create new objects. And at least during this moment that you are just learning how to use R, you don't want to lose all your information, so you can have a track of the changes that you apply to the dataset. Okay? So imagine that now is filter. Okay? That's important. Now that you know the difference between applying the changes to a new object or to the same object, I want to talk a little bit about the task that I ask in the lab, okay? So remember that a dataset has a tabular form. The columns are the variables. In this case, we have 51 variables. And the rows are the observations, okay? I use select in tidyverse when I want to choose certain number of variables. So what R is going to do is to select the whole column, okay? For instance, if I want to select by location county, location state, and location state abbreviation, it's gonna use the whole columns. In such a way, we're gonna have the same number of observations, but only 3 variables, okay? If I use the function select. And you can see it here. For instance, data2 has only 2 variables, right? Okay, so what filter does is that it filters certain rows, the whole rows, according to the values of a variable. For instance, I can say something like, I want to choose only the values of Republican. So it's going to filter whole rows, but the value of Republican in this variable, right? So when you use when you use filter, for instance, in this case, when you use filter, the number of observations will change, but the number of variables will be the same to the original version of the dataset. Do you get it? So again, select is used to choose complete or whole columns, right? And therefore my rows will be the same. And filter is used to choose complete rows, and therefore my variables will be the same to the original or to the previous version of the dataset. Okay? What I ask you to do is you have data 1, which is the original, data 2, and you need to select, so you need to use the function select, and later you will have data 3, which you need to filter. Right? So first you need to select certain number of variables that I ask you. Later you need to filter by the value, but certain state or the value of one of those variables. And these variables is states, and you need to choose one of the states that you prefer. Okay? So what you need to export at the end is data 3. Okay? Okay, just to reinforce this idea. So you conducted all these operations, you did all these manipulations, you changed the dataset, and you have the final dataset, and you say, oh, great, I finished my homework. You close R and you go do other things, and later 10 p.m. you want to submit the assignment, the lab, and you go to your computer and you say, oh my god, I don't see data 1, data 2, and data 3 in my folder in the working directory. What happened? I did everything good. I saw the datasets here in the bottom, but I don't see it in my computer. Why is that? It's because you haven't exported these objects that exist in R, but not in your real computer, in the real world of your computer. So you need to export them. So the final step is that you use the function, I'm sorry, here, right, CSV, and export one of these. Remember what I told you, that I want this one, and export that object, and you're gonna give it the name that you want, whatever, lab 1 or lab 2 or lab 3 or lab 4, whatever. You need to put here CSV, and you export it, and you now see here lab 4. Okay, so lab 4 is here. So you say, wow, great. And you need to submit that file. You need to submit also this R file. So call it lab replication, for instance. So you save this, you need to submit it, you need to submit the CSV file, and I don't remember if I asked you to submit something else, but you need to submit those two things. Okay, so that's for the task. Now, many students told me something like, we experience problems, you should explain better how to deal with the problems with the coding. Okay, I assigned you a whole chapter of a book that can give you instructions of how to conduct these operations with the basic functions of R, and I also explain how to use the tidyverse. Okay, the tidyverse tend to be easier to understand once you understand what is a pipe and what are the functions that you need to use. Is so much better and so much easier. It's more intuitive than the basic functions of R. Okay, the main problem with R is in the syntax of the functions. Okay, you need to keep in mind what is the syntax of that function. Go to Google or go to different places and try to understand how is that syntax, and be careful, don't include commas where you cannot include commas. Be careful that all the parentheses are there. Sometimes you have 3 set of parentheses, some inside other parentheses, so don't miss. For instance, if I do something like this is wrong, right? Because you don't have something, and the system is going to tell you it's wrong. I have something here and I haven't closed that, that's no, probably if I have, let me see, it's always automatically creates the close parentheses, but sometimes you can have things like this and you're gonna have a problem because you haven't closed one of the parentheses. So those are the kind of problems that you're gonna experience, or for instance, if you forgot to put a comma here, so it's problematic, so you made a mistake. Another source of mistakes is when you don't use quotation marks for a value that is categorical, or on the contrary, when you use quotation marks for a value that is numerical. That can be also problematic. And so the key idea here is to be careful with the syntax of the instruction of the function. Okay, remember that you have, for instance, the object. You can or cannot assign permanently those changes to an object. It's better to do it to have the object here and later to export that object. But if you are using the tidyverse, you need to do something like this. If it is select, you put here the name of the, I'm gonna write variable 1, variable 2, variable 3. Be careful that you use the commas to separate those variables. Okay. And if you want to filter, you're telling R to filter by certain values of this variable. Imagine that this variable is numeric, then you need to use the Boolean operators, for instance, that is higher than 3, I don't know, right? So you're gonna filter values in the variable 1 that are higher than 3. Okay, you're gonna find 4, 5, 6, whatever, but you're never gonna have in that new data set values with 1, 2, and even with 3. Okay, that's important to keep in mind. But imagine that you want to have, imagine that variable 2 is categorical. So you want to select only, I don't know, the states, I don't know, California or I don't know, apples instead of oranges, whatever. Okay. So those are the kind of things that you need to keep in mind. The key idea is be careful with the syntax. Don't make a mistake. Check what is the mistake, and you're gonna be fine. Okay. I think that's all for now, guys. I hope this is useful. Again, what I said and what I explained is the relationship between R and your computer, and the fact that even if you have the objects here in your environment, you need to use functions to export those those objects to the computer. Okay. Second, that an object is like a box in which you put different things, and you can even put new things that modified the previous version of that object. Okay. Third, they use the assignment operator in order to do that. Fourth, that the pipe in the tidyverse exists to do several operations to an object, but if you don't use the assignment operator, those changes is not going to be permanently applied. Okay. And finally, explain a little bit about the task. You use select when you want to choose some columns, and you use filter when you want to choose some rows according to the values of one or more variables. Okay. The good thing about the tidyverse is that you can actually read it. Try to read it. It's something like this. You say, R, I want to filter, or I want to modify object 1 by filtering the values of the variable 1 that are higher than 3. Okay? And if I use this, permanently apply those changes to object and create object 2, for instance. Okay? Or in this case, you say R, I want to subset object 1 by selecting 3 or 4 variables. Variable 1, variable 2, variable 3, and variable 4. And apply those changes, in this case, to the same object 1. So you can read it, right? This is called and then because sometimes, and we're gonna learn that later, you can do several different operations or changes to the same variable. So you can use, okay, that's good enough. That's enough for now. Okay, thank you so much, guys, for watching this. I hope this is useful for you. Bye.